Needless to say, the fighters outside are doomed, and Asgard's overwhelming space fleet will not let them go. And the people in this mothership are already the last seeds of the Dark Elves. The spaceship was almost pierced by Thor's fighter plane, and a large amount of cosmic rays flooded in. A strong man like Malekith could bear it, but ordinary Dark Elves could survive for a few minutes at most in a vacuum, and they were dead. Looking at the three people who climbed off the plane and came over, Malekith no longer had any hope, only revenge was left in his heart. He already knew that these three people have extraordinary identities. Two are the only princes of Asgard, and one is the future princess. If these three people can be dragged into hell before they die, then it will be great for Asgard. Said the same as an unbearable loss. Kill them. He issued the last order, and the remaining dozen or so cursed fighters surrounded. With a click, the cursed core in his hand was crushed, and Lucas once again transformed into the cursed War King. A cursed warrior rushed up first. Leave this to me. Loki flashed his dagger and took the lead. Jane Foster gave him a suspicious look. As far as she knew, Thor's younger brother was famously cowardly. Even if he got a shot once in a while, he would immediately come back even more cowardly in the next round. Thor laughed silently. The simple Ms. Jien couldn't see it, so couldn't he see it too? Luo Tong was the first one to rush up because she saw that the people behind were more like masters. Leave the biggest one to me, and leave the rest to you. Miss Lien was tortured even worse by Malekith's despicable tactics last time, and this will obviously be to get back the game. Thor nodded and looked at the remaining cursed warriors. I am the son of Odin, the heir to the throne. In hell, remember my name. Hearing his identity, the cursed warrior's eyes turned red, and he screamed to pounce on him. As Malekith's adjutant, Algrim, who made a fuss about dungeon back then, was originally very powerful. And now the cursed fighters transformed by these ordinary soldiers are far from comparable to him. Even a group of them is not much threat to Thor. Miss Jien faced Malekith, relying on her body skills to deal with him, but she was able to fight with ease. What was more miserable was Loki. He picked the weakest one, but the weakest one still hung him up and beat him. After a face-to-face encounter, Loki flew upside down. Fortunately, Loki has the physique of the giants of Jotunheim after all, and has been honed by Thor's iron fist. His fighting ability is absolutely top-notch. Although it is a bit miserable, he is full of spirit. Crack. Thor twisted the neck of the last cursed warrior, and then watched Miss Jane's performance with great interest. It seemed that Jane had the upper hand. Malekith's attack can't hit her at all, but her hammer is constantly beckoning everywhere, which is very interesting to watch. Especially Ms. Jien's original appearance is very good. But the problem is that it looks good, it doesn't hurt. After strengthening, Malekith's bones were so hard that he died. Mjolnir had to play a symphony with bang bang bang. But the opponent was still so fierce. It doesn't matter, the cursed warrior has a time limit. You will win when all his life force is exhausted. Loki walked up with a smile on his face. Originally, he had been abused by the cursed warrior, but later the cursed warrior found out that Thor's teammate team had been wiped out, and he was hit by Loki's black hole grenade in a panic. Come and help me. Miss Jane said angrily at Thor. She regrets it now. Last time she was distracted to protect Frigga and was beaten badly. This time, under the pressure of Thor, she fought Malekith with all her strength. She wanted to get back the game, but found that she still couldn't fight. Thor slowly surrounded him, and Loki also came up with a dagger in an attempt to grab the head. His subordinates were all dead, and Asgard fighter planes approached slowly. Malekith finally realized sadly that he might already be the last member of this race. There are 3 enemies in front of him. He is not Thor's opponent. Even Miss Jane is very difficult to win. Malekith finally decided to put all his eggs in one basket, dropped all defenses, and lunged at Loki. Damn it. Loki, who was thinking about grabbing the head just now, was caught off guard. He grabbed the neck, snatched the dagger from his hand, and stabbed it fiercely in the chest. Loki exploded like a punctured balloon with 10 bangs. A trap. It was too late for Malekith to react. Thor's palm was thrust into his back from behind, and the thunder in his palm erupted instantly, destroying his body. No matter how strong the vitality of the cursed warrior was, there would not be much magic resistance inside his body. Malekith fell down with endless unwillingness. So far, the Dark Elves who once ravaged the entire universe have been completely extinct and become history. The impact of this genocide is huge amounts of. Everywhere in the 9 realms is silent except for Earth, which is protected by Kamar Taj. Odin's strong shot seems to bring them back to the era of being conquered. In the universe, those ancient countries raised the threat of Asgard to the highest level, and at the same time sent envoys to try to form an alliance. On the ruined Titan, Thanos looked at the sky for a long time without saying a word, and Black Order also remained silent. After a long time, he finally spoke slowly. He is still really powerful. Thousands of years ago, if Asgard fought against the victorious Odin in order to capture the Tesseract. No one interrupted, except Black Dwarf, who is not very good at thinking, who is still flattering. How strong is it? Even if it is as strong as Odin, it is definitely not the opponent of the Master. Also in the Black Order, despite his burly physique, his status is actually the lowest. Unlike several others who follow Thanos fanatically for various reasons, Black Dwarf's allegiance to Thanos is purely for the survival of the race. Stack the thickest armor, bear the most poisonous armor, charge first, and die first. Thanks to the fact that this guy is really resistant to beatings, he has survived until now. Just like that, he had to lick a few words to express loyalty. But this time, he was flattering the horse's feet. Seeing Thanos' face was embarrassing, and Corvus Glaive next to him slapped him hard. Shut up. No, just stop talking. If Thanos can really beat Odin, he still needs to send Loki to the Earth to cause trouble. Looking at Thanos' expression, it is obvious that he has suffered a lot. Thanos didn't attack. He said in a deep voice, in any case, until Odin dies, try to avoid entering the 9 realms with great fanfare. Contact my good brother Thor and say, for our deep friendship, Sakaar is willing to be an eternal ally with Asgard. Gao Tianjun ordered his subordinates. Definitely, the first half of the sentence is pure fart, and the second half is the business. Regardless of Odin's strength, Asgard also showed the top war potential in the universe. Such a behemoth is worth making friends with. After dismissing his subordinates, Gao Tianjun looked at the 2 gladiators pecking at each other in the arena and sighed. Alas, there is no one who can beat a group of lovers. I don't know when the next champion fighter will appear. Well, it's best to look burly and muscular at first glance. Recently, audiences like to watch violent aesthetics. After the war, the aftermath was handed over to SIF and others, and Odin entered Odin's sleep as soon as he came back. This time it took longer than usual, and it took 7 days to wake up. In the original play, because he destroyed Bifrost, Odin had to consume a lot of divine power when She-Rita invaded, and activated dark energy to send Thor to the Earth, resulting in overdraft of divine power. Trapped to Earth by Loki. In this life, at least on the surface, Odin still has divine power. After Odin's sleep woke up, he chose to leave for a period of time regardless of his retention. I have experienced too many changes in my life. Now, I need a quiet time to think, review and reflect on my life. He looked at Loki and smiled faintly. In the beginning, I did regard you as the link to rule Jotunheim, but after many years, I finally decided to give up this plan and hide it all. I didn't expect to be discovered by you, I'm so sorry. Loki wanted to say something, but Odin's confession made him speechless. Seeing Loki like this, Odin didn't say much, turned to look at Thor with a complicated expression. Unfortunately, you didn't follow the path I arranged in the end. Asgard is in your hands. I don't know what will happen, it is still impossible to restore the glory. But I hope that one day you can prove that you are stronger than me. He no longer tried to correct Thor's philosophy, nor did he want to argue with him. Everyone has their own ideas. Since Thor has the ability, he doesn't need to follow the path he arranged. This is the mind of a strong generation. Drip. Congratulations to the host for completing the Odin-related mission, War and Peace, successfully getting Odin to recognize his own ideas, and getting a reward, passive skill, Man of Steel. A fiery energy flows through the whole body, and Thor obviously feels that his body is being transformed. Oh? Odin also felt Thor's change, and he grabbed one of Thor's arms to hold the pulse. It's unbelievable, your physical strength has reached an extremely high level. Maybe this is the confidence to change the future. Odin exclaimed. But you have to pay attention, there is no absolutely invincible defense in this world, and there is no with a truly invincible artifact. You must not be careless because of this, and underestimate the strong in the universe. Thor nodded, he'd always known that. Asgard already has the Tesseract. 2 infinite gems are too close together to be wise. So, I think the ether should be given to someone who can keep it safe. In the hall, Vostage expressed his opinion, which was agreed by many people. In a sense, what he said actually made sense. However, the power of the ether is very dangerous. If another evil race like the Dark Elves appears and uses the power of the ether to grow, it will eventually cause hidden dangers. Loki retorted on the spot. That's why we're looking for someone with the ability to guard it, like Collector Tanley, 697, Yati-wan. The two sides are arguing endlessly, and there is a reason why there is a guest. There is no need to argue. Thor interrupted everyone. He picked up the ether, and said slowly, "Infinite gems is indeed a temptation for many people, whether it is one or two, even if we take it send it out, and others will try to collect it. For example, Thanos, the Overlord. Counting the ether, there are already 4 infinite gems within the 9 realms. Regardless of whether there is ether or not, Thanos will come to seize it sooner or later. Sending ether will only make it easier for him to take it. Although the collector is powerful, but compared to Thanos is still far behind." Thor's words settled the matter, and no one refuted it. The ether and tesseract were stored together in the treasure house of the palace. Although Asgard looks similar to medieval Europe, it is actually highly civilized and not the autocratic monarchy people imagined. Therefore, even if Odin is not under the same position, there will be no trouble. This is the real reason why Odin is optimistic about Thor, because he can fight. Although Loki's political attributes are high, his advantage in Asgard is not obvious. However, this period of time is different. Envoys from all over the universe come to Asgard to visit, and it is impossible for Thor to fight them one by one. In the end, I was so annoyed by the whole thing that I simply became a shopkeeper. At this time, Loki is very useful. "My brother, are you really going to leave this kind of thing to me?" Loki stared dumbfounded at the stack of reports in front of him. Most of them were about diplomacy with different planets, and there were also about Asgard's post-war economic recovery. "Don't you dream of being a king? I'm here for your own good, to let you experience the joy of being a king. Are you not afraid of me making trouble?" Thor took out a small machine and introduced. "This thing, as long as it is placed on your neck, you can't take it off. When you press the remote control, you will be shocked by 100,000 volts. I will give it to my mother. If you want to die, I will install it for you. This is a good thing, I got it from Gao Tianjun in Sakar." Loki nearly flipped the table off. Leaving all the tedious matters to Loki, Wanger felt relieved. In this kind of high martial arts world where one person is against one country, the so-called power is illusory, and fist power is real. So what if you become a king? Without enough force as a guarantee, no matter how great the power is, it can return to before liberation. Just like in the original history, Loki pretended to be Odin and operated for several years, and seemed to have cultivated many cronies. Even Heimdall was replaced by Skolz, the Bald. As soon as Thor came back, Skolz directly sent to work as a cleaner. To be honest, putting aside Asgard, Thor's strength, if he shows up on most planets, he can immediately get the surrender of the entire planet. He can enjoy the benefits of the king without having to fulfill the responsibilities of the king. It's super cool to say. Definitely, the exception is Earth, which is too well protected by a great god. The matter of Asgard came to an end, and Thor set his sights on the Earth again. "It has been more than a month since I left the Earth. The human experiment of Hydra should be almost done, right? On Earth, the Avengers headquarters, the original Stark building, the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. are negotiating. Before Thor left, he warned me that Sokovia's superpowers are very powerful, and it is very risky to rush there," Nick Fury said in a deep voice. However, he has been away for more than a month. Who knows if he was delayed by something. Stark is a little unconvinced. "There is no Thor, so I can't start a group? Is my dignified Iron Man so worthless?" Everyone couldn't help but look at Xing Yun, who attended the meeting instead of Miss Jian. Although Natalia has an extraordinary relationship with Thor, she basically doesn't ask about Thor in order to avoid suspicion. Nebula hesitated, but still said, "Half a month ago, His Highness sent me a letter saying that they are going to fight, and the opponent is a dark elf from another planet. Although I really hope that Thor guy can come back, but it seems obviously unrealistic now." Stark shrugged. "His Highness Thor is busy with the Star Wars right now." Nick Fury immediately hesitated. "If Thor is really busy with the war, he probably won't be able to come back. Shall we let the Avengers try it first? Besides, the Avengers and him are not subordinates. Stark and the others are likely to act on their own. If this is the case, we will sneak into Sokovia territory without the other party's knowledge, and S.H.I.E.L.D.'s agent will cover for you." "Then what?" "Then." Nick Fury was taken aback suddenly, and then looked at Thor outside the door with a look of surprise. F***K. When did you come back?" "Oh, come back so soon. How is Star Wars going?" Stark joked. "Shall we go to support?" "It's over." Thor squinted at him. "My father pierced the core of the planet where the Dark Elves live, blasted it, and won." Thor used the simplest words to describe the most terrifying content. "Shit." Stark blurted out. "Don't tell me it's true, don't lie to me because I don't read much." In the rare case that Steve didn't remind Stark to stop swearing. In fact, not only S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Avengers, but even Nebula, who has seen the world, widened his eyes. What's so surprising? Thor patted her on the head and said with a light smile, Thanos once challenged my father in order to win the space gem, and he was beaten out of shit in the end. Nebula. Okay. Let's not talk about this issue first, let's discuss about Hydra. Steve interrupted everyone. Since Thor is back, let's go and destroy Sokovia's Hydra together, no problem? No comment. Somewhere in the woods on the outskirts of Sokovia, there is an old castle, and a large number of armed soldiers are patrolling around. No one would have thought that this was the last stronghold of Hydra, and they also regarded it as their hope for a comeback. In the command room of the base, a bald man looked at the screen in front of him frantically. On the screen are two rooms. In one of the rooms was a young man who was scurrying around like an epileptic at the moment, knocking the room into a bang-bang sound. In another room, there was a girl in red with brown hair. Her hand was swiped out of thin air, and streaks of red light emerged in her hand, and several tables and chairs in the air were floating back and forth following her gesticulation. These two people are the only two survivors among hundreds of human experiment volunteers. Beep beep. Suddenly, the alarm sounded loudly in the base. It's not good, Master Strucker, someone has invaded. Who is it? Strax suddenly became vigilant, and he was still holding a trace of luck. Looks like the Avengers. Strax's face turned livid immediately, and he made a decisive decision. All tanks and chariots are deployed, be sure to stop them. Afterwards, he gritted his teeth and made up his mind. Let the two test subjects go out, this time I will let the Avengers come and go. The weapons of these soldiers look familiar. Stark avoided the energy beam and fired in the air, whistled. When did Hydra actually master laser weapons? They not only stole the psychic scepter, but also took away a large number of Chi-Rita weapons left over from the New York War. Steve said in a deep voice. With Pierce, the former director, cooperating internally and externally, it is too easy for Hydra to benefit from S.H.I.E.L.D. A tank in front blocked the way. The Hulk suddenly fell from the sky, overturned it with an angry palm, grabbed the barrel and smashed it at another tank like a meteor hammer. A silver streamer flashed. Hawkeye shot an arrow, but a figure rushed up and knocked him to the ground. Eagle instantly put down his bow and arrow, and drew out his dagger, but the opponent immediately disappeared without a trace. He picked up the newsletter report. The person who discovered the super ability of high-speed movement is difficult to see with the naked eye. He is about 20 years old, with short blonde hair and white clothes. Whether he has other abilities is unknown. Understood. Thor said as he walked. For others, the Hydra base is like a dragon's pond and a tiger's den, but for him it is like walking on flat ground. It should be a super ability person who has successfully transformed. Super ability is super speed, similar to the Flash in the movie. A very magical phenomenon, in this world, except for the Marvel series, all the movies and comics in the previous life exist. As soon as the words fell, a figure suddenly magnified in his eyes, and Thor, who was caught off guard, did not have time to escape. Bang. After a crisp crash, Thor looked at the young man who had fainted on the ground, speechless. This is the most humiliating Quicksilver I've ever seen. Quicksilver's speed was indeed so fast that Thor didn't even react. But this guy has no speed, but his physique is average, and he knocked himself out when he bumped into it. After all, I now have a super steel body. Okay, Mr. the Flash has been arrested by me. A burst of spiritual energy suddenly struck. Drip, it is detected that there is an abnormal spiritual magic trying to invade. Passive skill, spiritual barrier activated, immune. Note. You can choose whether to view the illusion content in the third person. It's Scarlet Witch's psychic magic. No sooner has he caught Quicksilver than Wanda can't resist. Seeing the options in the spiritual sea, Thor chose, yes, the fearful environment created by Wanda is often the scariest thing in my heart. Some have happened in the past, and some are very likely to appear in the future. In the dim yellow sky, there was an aura of destruction everywhere. Fiery flames erupted suddenly, sweeping across the world in an instant. A hundreds of feet tall flame giant raised the huge sword in his hand and roared loudly, I am the end of Asgard. Ragnarok. The illusion suddenly shattered, only showing Suterte's outbreak, without any consequences. Thor raised his head and looked at Wanda, who was not far away, with eyes widened in surprise. Wanda snorted coldly, waved her hand, and two red magic balls flew towards her. Although I don't know how the person in front of me begged her spiritual power, but she has more than that. Thor, who had been prepared for a long time, slipped his hand, and a portal appeared in front of him. He stepped into the portal and appeared behind Wanda in an instant. He pressed his shoulder. "Little sister, the game is over." A strong mental shock came along her shoulder. Wanda is confident that this impact can at least make the opponent dizzy for a moment, and she can turn defeat into victory. Then, she only felt that she had hit the steel plate, but instead she felt dizzy and fainted. Poor Wanda, it was just her first actual battle, and she met the final boss in Novice Village. Thor looked at the little girl in front of him with great interest. The current Wanda is still a little immature, not proficient in the use of ability, and has no protective shield yet. But if she can grow up, Wanda's potential is terrifying, even surpassing her own. Drip. Congratulations to the host for triggering a Wanda-related task, the Witch Growth Plan. Mission description. Wanda possesses the most terrifying power in the world, origin magic power, but she has a fragile personality and it is difficult to control this power. Once she loses control, it will inevitably cause serious consequences. Mission objective. Train Wanda well so that she can truly control this power. Mission reward. Active skill, infinite reversal. Alter reality's reverse skill. When the reality setting is modified by abnormal power, the reality can be restored to its original state by reversing the inability within 1 hour. Note. This skill has no cooldown and cost, and can be applied to any modifications including infinite gems. Reversing infinity, in a sense, this is a very weak skill. It is said to be an active skill, but in fact it can only be used to show off tricks, without any strengthening for oneself. But on the other hand, under certain circumstances, this skill will be incomparably against the sky. Such a scene appeared in Thor's mind. After countless battles and plans, old Thanos finally got together 6 gems to summon the dragon. Oh no, it was snapping his fingers. "I am destiny." Thanos snapped his fingers smugly. "I am Thor. Reverse infinite. I am destiny." Thanos snapped his fingers in doubt. "I am Thor. Reverse infinite. I'm just F*K. Thanos snapped his fingers with a black face, but after a continuous storm of finger snaps, the infinity gauntlet exploded. The expression on the old thief's face must be very interesting, right? Cultivation. No, it is to cultivate Wanda. Although this task may take a long time, I have always been a patient person. Besides, the young Wanda's beauty is really amazing. Wanda woke up faintly, opened her eyes slowly, and saw Thor's gentle gaze. "Little sister, don't be afraid, as long as you are obedient, I won't hurt you." Wanda, who already had a richer imagination than ordinary people, instantly created countless terrifying pictures in his brain. Damn it, it's not good. Thor, who was just joking at first, saw the despair and collapse on Wanda's face, and immediately knew that he had to. The next moment, a shrill female scream came. Ah 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 ah. No matter which world you are in, the most common, widest ranging, and most indiscriminate attack is the sonic attack. In the world of martial arts, there is the roar of the lion, in the world of fantasy, there is the howling of the banshee, and in the world of Marvel, there is the scream of Wanda. Wanda, who was out of control, subconsciously shouted, not only how high the decibel was, but more importantly, the mental power mixed in it unconsciously. Fear spread rapidly, and in an instant, countless red smoke spread out from his body, covering the entire battlefield in an instant. Except for Thor, who has a spiritual barrier, everyone within a few miles, friend or foe, is entangled in fear. Everyone paused for a moment, then stiffened and stayed where they were. Stark even fell down on the spot. If Jarvis hadn't reacted so quickly, he might have been the same as the future war machine. Where is this? Natalia looked up at the gloomy sky. She can tell at a glance that this is not the Earth. There is obviously some atmosphere, and there is water for human survival. All aspects are suitable for survival, but why is dead silent? Standing beside him is Thor. The dark color is a bit weird, and on the opposite side is a monster with a face that looks like a skeleton, floating in the air and looking neither human nor ghost. Thor Odinson, son of Odin. Natalia Romanova, daughter of Ivan. A hoarse voice came from Red Skull. What you are looking for is close at hand, accompanied by your fear. Soul Gem is revered among infinite gems. It has its own wisdom. Everyone who wants to get Soul Gem, all need sacrifices. Sacrifice for what? Natalia in the illusion asked curiously. A soul, and it must be the soul of the person you love the most. If you want to get the original stone, you must lose your love. This is an eternal deal. Only by changing souls can users know how precious it is. Natalia was startled, then suddenly thought of something, and looked at Thor tenderly. I didn't expect that at the last moment. I could still understand your heart. It turns out that your true love is me. In this way, I have no regrets. Then, she ran towards the cliff and jumped off. The illusion was shattered, and what happened behind was unknown. Natalia only felt a little sour in her eyes. She rubbed the tears from the corners of her eyes, with a dazed look on her face. Just now, what the hell happened? Could this be true? She woke up relatively early, and glanced at the teammates around her. No matter friend or foe, everyone lost consciousness. What appeared in Hawkeye's illusion was the scene where he was beaten up by Thor on the space carrier because he was controlled by Loki. In Steve's fantasy, he saw the top of the snow mountain, and Bucky fell into the abyss. What Hulk saw was a purple potato-like enemy, punching him with a set of military punches. He tried to resist, but the opponent was far superior to him in terms of strength and physical skills. Stark saw that he was standing on a ruined battlefield. His battle armor was in tatters. What caught my eye was countless superheroes, including the familiar Hulk and Thor, and many unfamiliar ones. Just when he was at a loss, a voice without the slightest emotion suddenly came from his ear. There is no one with super abilities in the world. Suddenly, it seemed that the whole world was quiet. Looking around, Hulk was twitching, shrinking until he was Bruce Banner. The lightning on Thor, who once swung the battle axe to destroy everything, disappeared, and the whole person fell from the sky. Captain America's strong body of 1.9 meters suddenly shrank, and became a skinny boy of 1.6 meters. There are many unknown superheroes of all kinds, such as a horse-faced magician holding a golden energy sword, a woman with short hair glowing all over her body, a blue ball whistling and controlling an embroidery needle. In an instant, everyone became mortals. Only Stark himself, War Machine, and Falcon were left unaffected, and they were all superheroes of technological flow. No, Stark woke up from the horror, looked around and asked, "What happened?" The voice of Jarvis sounded. "Sir, just now a mysterious spiritual power has spread, and everyone including you has fallen into an illusion." Illusions? Stark breathed a sigh of relief. But an idea took root in his heart and never left him. What if one day the super ability fails? At that time, only the power of technology can protect the Earth. Everyone but Thor is caught, including Wanda herself. Originally, she would not be able to hit her own magic, but the mental attack she broke out after losing control was blocked by Thor's spiritual barrier, and then suffered a backlash. Baron Strucker was very unlucky. Originally, if he let Wanda and Quicksilver block him and run away by himself, he still had a high probability of escaping. But he is pinning his hopes on two superpowers and a group of miscellaneous soldiers with Chi-Rita weapons to come back. When he found out that the two brothers and sisters couldn't handle Thor and wanted to run away, it was too late. Wanda's scream was an indiscriminate attack. As an ordinary person, he would only lose consciousness longer than the Avengers. After catching Stark casually, Stark flew to meet Thor with a proud face. Thor looked at Wanda trembling in his arms and sighed. "Poor baby, I'm afraid I will recall the memory of losing a loved one again." "Don't worry, it's over." Thor rubbed her head. Wanda, who is proficient in spiritual magic, has a keen perception. She feels that Thor has no malice towards her, and her emotions calm down. She looked up at Thor with a complex expression, and suddenly blushed. "Hey, Stark, I got it." "Wow, Thor, you have a new love?" Stark's voice sounded not far away. Wanda, who was calm just now, suddenly became tense again. That red figure, to her, was a demon from hell, which immediately brought back memories. With a scream, Wanda waved her hand subconsciously. Stark was still in doubt, only feeling his world spinning, and he fell to the ground in an instant. Warning. Warning. High energy reaction. Unknown people are attacking you. The alarm information of Jarvis filled the display screen in an instant. "Okay. Let him go first, we'll talk about things later, I'll let him give you an explanation." Thor patted Wanda. Wanda hummed obediently. The red energy around Stark dissipated, and then he regained his freedom. "Strange. Why are you so obedient all of a sudden?" Thor didn't have time to think about it, and Stark complained. Hey, are you too serious about sex and friends? It's obvious that she did something to me, and you want me to explain it?" Stark's face suddenly turned black, as if the bottom of the pot. The legendary man with the opposite sex and no humanity refers to this guy, right? Thor said unhappily. "Their parents died on a missile manufactured by Stark Industries. Do you think you need to explain?" Stark's eyes narrowed suddenly. "What you said is true. Definitely true. You bloody-handed executioner, warmonger." Quicksilver, who had woken up at some point, stood up and cursed at Stark. Impossible. I closed the weapon department long ago. Moreover, the weapons of Stark Industries were only sold to the US military. Stark's statement is reasonable under normal circumstances. His high-tech weapons can only be sold to the military. As a patriotic military entrepreneur in his own family, Lao Mei can allow you to sell equipment at a high price, but it is absolutely impossible to tolerate you selling weapons to others casually. Thor reminds. Obadiah. Stark was shocked, and immediately confirmed with Jarvis, and got a positive answer. His face was so gloomy that water dripped out. According to Jarvis, Obadiah belonged to the type of selling for money back then, and secretly sold weapons to many organizations, including the terrorist organization that blew up Wanda's house. I'm sorry. I apologize for your tragedy, Stark apologized solemnly. Although it's not the weapons he sells, they are from Stark Industries after all. Moreover, if he hadn't been drunk all the time, he wouldn't have failed to discover Obadiah who was stealing and selling arms. Although he is usually very proud, but this time his apology is very sincere. Wanda fell silent, not knowing what to do. What's the use of your apology? Apologizing and my parents will live? Quicksilver snarled with tears in his eyes. Thor interrupted suddenly. In the Middle Ages, the one who killed the sword was always the one who wielded the sword, not the blacksmith. Moreover, the one who sold the arms was a traitor to Stark Industries, and was killed by Stark himself a few years ago. And those terrorists, after Stark became Iron Man, have all been cleaned up. Don't choose the wrong person for revenge, let alone the wrong partner. It is the terrorists who caused your family's misfortune, and Hydra is the source of most of the chaos. You are the lucky ones in the experiment. Maybe you don't know that there are at least 1,000 people who participated in the experiment, because some of them are already corpses. Thor carried them to the basement, and let the brother and sister see the end of the experiment failure. Ouch. Under the bloody scene, Wanda couldn't help throwing up on the spot. I know that you participated in the experiment. Apart from revenge, you also hope to use your own strength to maintain peace. But it is ironic that Hydra has provoked most of the wars in this world over the years. They tried to cultivate super ability, just for their own purpose. Wanda murmured, it turns out that Baron Strucker has been using us. Quicksilver was equally silent. There is no need to explain too much at all. The fate of those failed experimental subjects is in front of us. Not only did they lose their lives, some unlucky ghosts lingering on their last legs even became living experimental vegetarian dishes. Life would be worse than death. When 343 thought that he would almost become one of them, both of them shuddered. No legitimate organization would do this, only those anti-human organizations and regiments would conduct such insane experiments. So what should we do now? Among so many experimental subjects, the brother and sister were the only ones who survived. On the one hand, it was the belief in revenge that supported them, and on the other hand, it was also the great dream that Hydra described for them. But now, revenge is out of the question, and the real enemy has long since died. As for Hydra, it is an anti-human organization at all. The so-called Great Dream is nothing but brainwashing of believers. The two who lost their goals for a while couldn't help but feel a little confused. Fortunately, they met the Avengers the first time they took action, so they didn't make a big mistake. Thor smiled. I won't say that the greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. But I can tell you that if you don't have a goal, then find a goal for yourself. The crisis in this world is not just Hydra. You should also know about the New York War, right? Aliens have already set their sights on the Earth. Everyone makes mistakes, and the Avengers are the same. The key is how to correct the mistakes. We have some extraordinary powers. How to use this power is what we should think about. Definitely, no one stipulates what to do with power, at least I don't believe in this. You can also choose to be an ordinary person, change the nationality of any country, and live a good life with a lot of money. I think Stark will be happy to make it up to you. There will be someone who will keep the dangerous effort off Earth. In fact, this kind of thing doesn't need Stark's help at all. It's easier for Jin Bin to do it, and he can help them create a new identity with just one sentence. However, Thor felt that for the brothers and sisters who were still minors, it was better not to get in touch with the Black Society. That's right. Although she looks much more mature than her peers, that's because she has suffered too much. Actually, Wanda Song is 2 years older than Spider-Man Peter Parker. Thor didn't continue talking, waiting for their choice. The formation of Avengers is not to recruit strong men. Every member needs to be voluntary. Can I join the Avengers? Unexpectedly, it was Wanda who spoke, not Quicksilver, who seemed more detached. Oh. Are you ready? Thor asked with great interest. No one is ready at the beginning, there must be a beginning. Wanda stared at Thor. What happened? Why is little sister Wanda looking at me so wildly? Very good, you are already an Avenger. Welcome to join. After Thor finished speaking, he looked at Quicksilver. Don't look at me. Saving the world is such a cool thing, how can I be missing? I object. Stark refused when he learned that Thor was going to bring the Quicksilver and Wanda brothers and sisters into the Avengers. With a cold face, he said, 2 minors should not be allowed to come into contact with things like war. It's as if you weren't the one who made 14-year-old high school students participate in the heroic Civil War. Thor glanced at him. He knew age wasn't the point was that working together would arouse Stark's guilt. Since the day the missile exploded in my house, we have been in contact with war. Quicksilver looked dissatisfied. Stark was speechless for a moment. Thor helped him out. If you really feel guilty for them, help them get a battlesuit, at least bulletproof, so as to ensure their safety. I don't need. Bullets can't catch up with me at all. Before Quicksilver finished speaking, Thor suddenly pulled out a pistol and pointed it at Wanda. Bang. 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 What are you doing? Thor stood so far away that Quicksilver didn't have time to stop him, he just got in front of Wanda in time. The expected pain did not come. As this blank? Quicksilver wondered. What's the use of simply running past bullets? Even an ordinary gunman can kill you if you find a weak point. How about lending me a few days before I bring back the psychic scepter? I have a research and I need it. A few days later, Stark suddenly approached Thor. Thor is training Wanda to control her emotions. As the Prince of Asgard, controlling emotions is originally a compulsory course. Hearing what Stark said, Thor's eyelids twitched. The Ultron project is probably the only one that can let Stark borrow the scepter to study. In fact, if Thor wanted to, Ultron didn't even buy the chance to be born. As long as the mind gem is confiscated, Stark will never be able to get Ultron again. But in this case, Vision will not appear, and the Avengers will lose an important member. Also, if mind gem is in my hand, it seems useless. At this time Thor thought of another thing. When watching movies in his previous life, he always had doubts. As an infinite gems, why Thanos was so relieved to throw it to Loki and get Earth to roam. Even if Loki really succeeds, in case Bald Chang is stimulated, Ancient One boss, wouldn't he lose the gems and lose his army? Although according to the rules, Ancient One will not make a move. But the rules are dead. If a giant Leviathan came to the hospital where Strange was, Thor didn't believe that Ancient One could bear it. Moreover, whether it is Ancient One who absorbs the dark power, or Doctor Strange who will use Time Gem to negotiate conditions in the future, it can be seen from them that Kamar Taj is not a stickler for sticking to the rules. There is also a very strange place. Vision, one of the strongest Avengers, can be stabbed to half-death by Corvus Glaive, which is very illustrative. The old thief has definitely tampered with Mind Gem. Maybe the Ultron project will fail because of the problem with the Mind Gem? If such a Mind Gem is placed in Asgard's treasury, it will be a time bomb. It is better to let Stark create Vision, which can be used as a combat force, and can also be used to find the back door on the Mind Gem. As for Ultron's problem, once he decides to kill Stark, he will never give up until he stumbles. Anyway, Ultron's strength is just that. No matter how many robots there are, there will be no troubles. Wong-Er agreed after a little consideration. Okay, you can use it for research, but I want to remind you, don't do human experiments like Baron Scrat. Although this possibility is very small, Thor just mentioned it casually. You want to do artificial intelligence, but you don't want to tell the rest of the team? Stark knew that he couldn't handle Ultron's research alone, so he quickly found another great scientist, Bruce Banner. Originally, there was another suitable candidate, a doctor named Zhao Hailun. She even reminded herself of the future development direction of the battle armor. Nanotechnology. It's a pity that Thor admires this little girl very much, and she agreed to work in Thor's research center 2 days ago. If she is also pulled into the Ultron plan, maybe she will run to tell Thor, and then Thor will not approve of his plan and take back the scepter in advance. Facing Stark's unconstrained vision, Banner questioned it. Yes, I didn't tell them. Stark looked serious, because I don't want to waste time on endless arguments. We need to put armor on this world. The Zarita invasion in New York will not be the only one. There will definitely be more alien invasions in the future. The Avengers. Banner nodded. Yeah, so he keeps reminding me to make peace with Hulk instead of trying to eliminate him. Because of Thor's reminder, the relationship between Hulk and Banner is more harmonious than in the original book. Although it cannot be completely controlled, Hulk will regard anyone who Banner hates as a sworn enemy, and what Banner wishes to protect, Hulk will do his best to protect. If you rely solely on superheroes, it is not enough to protect the Earth. The Earth is so big, but the number of superheroes is limited, and there will always be places that cannot be taken care of. And the Ultron plan, once successful, we can use the Steel Army to destroy the aliens. Keep people out of Earth's defenses, so Earth is safe. Stark continued to persuade Banner. Banner was a little moved. He said with hesitation, "Let the whole world be surrounded by armor. This seems to be a cold world. I've seen colder ones. This fragile blue planet needs Ultron. And the peace of our time needs Ultron." Stark's tone was earnest. In that terrifying illusion, he saw all super abilities disappear. At that time, all humans can rely on is the battle armor. "Okay, I agree." Banner was moved by Stark's words, and he agreed to join the study. "Your Highness Thor, will you attend this Saturday's gathering?" Helen Zhao in overalls asked Thor. "Definitely, when we're not on a mission to save the world. Partying is a way for us to relax. How about you? Do you want to join us?" Helen Zhao smiled. "I'm not as free as you guys. However, if it's your invitation, boss, then I have no choice but to spare time in order not to be fired." 2 days ago, she agreed to jump ship and come to Thor's research center. Definitely not only because of the admiration of Thor, but also because Thor promised to fund her research regardless of the cost. The huge sum of money that had been drawn by gold was also rusted. Not far away, Natalia saw this scene, and secretly complained with a black face, "It's another moth to the flame." Then he looked at Wanda next to him and joked, "See? Men are like this, eating what's in the bowl and looking at what's in the pot. Little sister, you're still young, so you can't be fooled." Wanda's small thoughts are too obvious. How can she hide it from Black Widow, who is a 10th level agent? Wanda blinked at Natalia, and suddenly smiled. "But sister, don't forget that I can feel your emotions a little bit, and you seem to be deceived." The widow's face suddenly became a little embarrassing. "Okay, Shao Na, don't spoil Wanda, she is still a child." Thor heard their conversation and came over to interrupt. Natalia rolled her eyes, with a charming look on her face. "It's like I'm talking nonsense. Why are you poaching people under your hands? Don't tell me it's just to attract talents. In my opinion, you are greedy." His body. "I'm still greedy for you." Thor grabbed her hand. In front of Wanda, there was a dignified Black Widow, and his face was a bit uncomfortable. He was shameless and she wanted shame. He pulled out his hand and changed the subject bluntly. Okay, don't mess around. I just want to ask you if the Sokovia base is the last Hydra base? Have we really cleared them?" She is a little worried. Hydra is truly cut off one head, and grow 2 more. S.H.I.E.L.D. has verified this with more than half a century of lessons. Once the eradication is not clean, it is inevitable that it will be revived. Moreover, the brainwashing ability of this organization is particularly strong, and it is easy to develop. Thor shook his head. Hydra in the conventional sense no longer exists. Even if there are, they are just some ordinary believers, and they will disappear slowly in a short time. Normal meaning. Yes, in fact, all the Hydra that S.H.I.E.L.D. encountered were from the Red Skull. The real Hydra appeared thousands of years ago, and it is a very ancient organization. They believe in a so-called god named Honeycomb. This deity is trapped on other planets, and Hydra has been working to bring him back for years. And Red Skull, it is their investment in welcoming the Hive to world domination. Natalia digested this information. It doesn't sound like a good thing, it's just a brainwashing organization. Honeycomb? God? What kind of god? Is it similar to you? Thor couldn't help laughing. He tapped Natalia's smooth forehead and said, "This is the worst time I have been hacked. The gods are not as mysterious as you think. You let Miss Zhao Helen take a AK-47 went to the Middle Ages, and it could still be worshipped as a god by the ancients. Definitely, it might also be burned to death as a witch." Natalia and Wanda smiled prettily, and Helen Zhao muttered in dissatisfaction. "Why do you use me as an example? As for his strength, I can hit 10 to the 10th power." Thor pretended to be aggressive. Ha ha ha. Zhao Hailun couldn't help laughing, and the room was filled with a happy atmosphere. "Thor, Asgard has just sent a message, and it is very urgent." Jane Foster hurried in from the door. During the period of returning to Earth, SIF stayed in Asgard for the time being, to take care of some things, supervised Loki by the way, and Miss Jane was in charge of the communication between Thor and Asgard. If there is something important, Heimdall will notify him immediately. Oh? Emergency information? Thor was a little puzzled. There seemed to be no major events during this period. Could it be that Loki is getting together and doing something? It's enough for XIYE to beat him up for this kind of thing. After taking over the communicator, Thor looked at the contents inside. With just one glance, his face became serious. This message from Heimdall has only one sentence. Nadawi sent a distress signal to Asgard. Who is the most bad munitions manufacturer in the Marvel Universe? Iron Man's Stark Industries? SHIELD with the black technology of air carriers? Wakanda with technology beyond the times? Neither. Asgard's vassal, the dwarf planet Nadawi, is the most NB artifact manufacturer in the entire Marvel Universe. This place is a legend. The magical weapons they forged are invincible, including Odin's eternal spear, Mjolnir in the hands of Miss Jane, Heimdall's guardian sword, and even the Infinity Gauntlet that controls the 6 infinite gems. In short, dwarf-produced, must be a boutique. On the other hand, the dwarf clan is also quite sad. The weapons they forged were not controlled by their own clansmen. The dwarf tribe with their uncanny forging skills only has more than 300 people, and most of them are not good at fighting. If they were not attached to Asgard, they would have perished long ago. In the original history, when Dwarf lost the protection of Asgard, Thanos came to Nadavi, and he forced Dwarf to build Infinity Gauntlet. As an obsessive who kept his promise, Thanos would slaughter half of the life on the planet he visited, but when it came to Dwarf, he broke his promise for the first time. When Thanos saw that Dwarf could create Infinity Gauntlet, he thought Dwarf was too dangerous. He slaughtered all the dwarfs except King Iqi. In order to prevent Iqi from making any weapons, Thanos abolished the hands of the dwarf king. This is the tragedy of the dwarf clan. The principle that everyone is innocent and pregnant with guilt is universal throughout the universe. As a member of the 9 realms, Nadawi is protected by Asgard. Even if Odin is not around, ordinary forces will never dare to offend Asgard easily. At this time, the only one who dares to invade Nadawi is Thor. Turned his thoughts quickly. What's the matter? Natalia asked worriedly, seeing his serious expression. The 9 realms has been invaded by a powerful enemy. If I guess correctly, it should be the person behind Chi-Ruida, Thor said in a deep voice. As he spoke, he looked around. Wanda, come with me. Then he glanced at Jane and shook his head slightly. The current Jane's strength is similar to that of herself in the Hammer God period, and it is not very helpful for higher intensity battles. And she needs to guard the Earth, lest the Avengers be wiped out by Ultron 3. As for Wanda, she has a high burst limit, and as a magician, the role of support is greater. Miss Helen Zhao, I'm sorry that I may not be able to attend the party on Saturday. The light of Bifrost shrouded it, and the figures of Thor and Wang Da disappeared in place. What's going on? Why the rush to leave? Stark and Steve, and others rushed over when they heard the noise, and Thor and Wanda had already left. A message came from Asgard that Nadawi, one of the 9 realms, had been attacked, and His Royal Highness Thor went to quell the chaos. Jane Foster said in a low voice, moreover, the opponent is powerful. I have never seen Thor so dignified. Nebula said with a pale face, it's my father, the craziest butcher in the universe. There are not many people in this world who can defeat His Highness, and my father is one of them. Moreover, the Kirwidas are relying on him. Stark and the others gasped suddenly. Asgard, Loki, Heimdall and others met the teleported Thor and Wanda. Welcome to Asgard. Heimdall was as serious as ever. Hey, bro. Why are the women around you different every time I see you? Loki was a little speechless. He seriously suspected that Thor's love to run to the earth is because of his obsession. Thor didn't have time to answer his words, and told Sif in a deep voice. Nadawi, don't attack rashly for the time being. Gather the army and wait for my notice. Wanda and I go to stop the other party first, which may delay the time. Ordinary troops have limited effect on the top powerhouses, and it is impossible for Asgard's fighter planes to bomb Nadawi indiscriminately. Odin is only leaving temporarily. Thanos is unlikely to dare to invade on a large scale. It is likely that only a few masters make a surprise attack. Even if Odin reacts, it is easy to withdraw. Sif clasped her hands together. Although confused and worried, Dao, as one of the best fighters, obeyed Thor's orders unconditionally at critical moments. Is there anything I need to do? Loki also saw the unusual and asked proactively. Forget it. Unless you're ready to single out the one who gave you the staff. Loki's face paled. Okay, then I'll be in Asgard. Thor was about to set off, and suddenly realized that he was empty-handed, so he quickly drew a portal to enter it, and appeared a moment later with a long gun in his hand. Gun of Eternity. Gingnur. Heimdall, send us to Nadawi. The light of Bifrost was about to shroud. Thor took out an old-fashioned communicator from his pocket, and pressed the button to send the signal. Sending, signal connected. Nadawi, the homeland of Dwarf, its main body is a special neutron star. For the dwarf family, this neutron star is not only a melting pot for forging magical weapons, but also a light source and heat source for their daily life. A large number of powerful metals, surrounding the neutron star, built a steel city, and the dwarf family lived in this steel city. Under normal circumstances, as Asgard's super arsenal, Nadawi would not be dared to provoke Nadawi, but the purple sweet potato essence in front of him was obviously not among them. Demon, you will receive retribution. Asgard will not let you go. Dwarf King Ikwi glared at Thanos and his party angrily. There were only 5 people who attacked the dwarf clan, but each of these 5 people had terrifying strength. The dwarf clan was no match at all, and they all knelt down in less than half an hour. Whether it's a devil or a god, I never expect everyone to approve of what I do. Thanos waved the Overlord Skyblade in his hand, and said lightly, forge the Infinity Gauntlet that dreams of receiving 6 gems, and I will keep half of your clan. Or, the entire dwarf clan will disappear from the universe. Not far away, all the dwarf clansmen were restrained and fell to the ground. Ebony Maw pointed, and dozens of steel spears were suspended in the air, aiming at the shivering dwarf below. Don't expect anyone to come to your rescue. I hate endless negotiations, so be direct. From now on, every hour that passes, 30 of your tribe will be killed, and you will have about 10 hours to complete your forging. Thanos has no expression on his face, what he said, with awe-inspiring murderous intent. According to the information he learned, Odin is not in Asgard now, and his whereabouts are unknown. In his view, this is an opportunity, at least to touch the bottom line of Asgard. For this reason, he only brought the 4 Heiyao generals with him in this trip, and he was caught off guard, so naturally he couldn't let the dwarf clan delay time. Definitely, in most cases it is enough, each of the 5 of them is comparable to an army. Master, be careful. Ebony Maw shouted, and Thanos instantly showed a vigor that was not commensurate with this huge body, and he rolled to avoid the fiery light falling from the sky. The dazzling light made them couldn't help covering their eyes with their hands. Hey, Purple Sweet Potato King, you've really come back from living longer. In the light of Bifrost, Thor's teasing voice sounded. If you're so afraid of meeting me, I can come later, and you don't need to rush to work. Thanos lowered his hand covering his eyes, and looked at Thor and Wanda, standing in front of the dwarf captives, holding the holy Gungnir. Wanda gave birth to her hands, red energy flashed, and the steel spear in the air suddenly twisted into a ball like gluten and fell to the ground. Thanos ignored her, he looked at Thor, or rather at the eternal gun in Thor's hand. Gungnir, what a dear old friend. I doubt you deserved it, though. Whether you deserve it or not, you, Gungnir, miss you very much, especially the feeling of beating you out of shit. Shut up. The great master is not something you can insult. Thanos #1 henchman. Ebony Maw snapped, earning Thor a sneer. Shut up. Talking to your master. How can a slave talk? Hey, you call this guy who died with a household registration book called Da Wei. Call this guy who was beaten like a dog by my father and came to the 9 realms secretly. Great? Do you call this thing that will wipe out half of the life in the universe without any injustice or enmity? Oh, it's really great. Titan Star gave birth to such an unworthy descendant like you, and it deserves to be turned into ruins. The 4 generals of Heiyao dare not make a sound. Ebony Maw looked back at Thanos' face secretly, and found that the purple sweet potato essence had turned into black sweet potato essence. What happened to Titan has always been a pain in Thanos' heart, and no one dared to mention it. The planet he was born on was destroyed due to the exhaustion of resources, which also led to Thanos on the path of half-extinction. Thanos smiled angrily, he had already decided, he would definitely keep Thor, let him see the destruction of Asgard with his own eyes, and let him know. You shouldn't provoke me if you provoke dragons and tigers, I can't bear shit and urine and can't bear you. Let's go together, or is it the same as last time? If you can do it, don't force it, but if you can't beat it, then you must force it more. Oh, then I'll let you lose your heart. Thanos sneered, raised the tyrant Skyblade, and approached slowly. Heiyao Si will keep an eye on Wanda. Since the master wants to play with him, then don't interfere, they have absolute confidence in Thanos. What they have to do is to keep an eye on this mysterious-looking magician. Thor gripped Gungnir tightly, ready to fight. When the distance between the two was less than 10 meters, Thor suddenly looked behind Thanos and whistled. Hey, shooting star. Thanos sneered. In his opinion, it was purely that Thor wanted to find an opportunity to distract him from a sneak attack. The cubs of Odin's family are more thieves than one. Just as he was about to make a move, he suddenly felt an extremely high-intensity energy coming from behind him, his face changed and he quickly turned around, seeing a big head getting bigger and bigger in sight. Boom. A golden shadow hit Thanos' face, and the huge amounts of impact caused him to flip several somersaults on the ground. As soon as he got up, the golden figure quickly jumped up to his body, turned around and raised his hands from behind. Wrapped around his neck, stepped on to catch the right hand holding the knife, and stepped on the ground. This process was completed almost instantly, and Black Order didn't even have time to react. The golden figure appeared, Captain Marvel, Carol Danforth. When Thor went to Na'vi, she knew that there would be a fierce battle, so she used her communicator. Black Dwarf was the first to make a move, turning the huge amounts of axe in his hand into a chain blade and throwing it towards Carol. With a click, the Spear of Eternity pierced the end of the chain blade, and Thor yanked it violently, and the Black Dwarf at the other end couldn't hold the chain and immediately let go. Ebony Maw stretches out his fingers to manipulate all materials on the ground that can be used as weapons. 1,000 red glows covered the ground, and Ebony Maw was so horrified that he couldn't lift anything with his teleportation. He looked to the side in shock, and saw Wanda sneered, with scarlet energy clusters all over his hands. Your partner's strength is indeed good, but it's not enough. Thanos struggled to say these words, and then exerted force with his right hand, pushing Carol's feet away, and his body suddenly leaned back, and his huge body hit a steel pillar against Carol. Then with a loud bang, Carol hit the ground heavily, even sinking into the ground. Wanda was startled. Red light flashed on her hand. Thor waved her hand. Don't worry. This woman is super fierce, even more resistant to beating than Hulk. Sure enough, the ground exploded in the next instant, and Carol shot up into the sky with a dazzling light all over his body. He looked unscathed, and even his hairstyle was not messed up. This is the enemy you want to deal with? Carol just said hello at this time. Thor rolled his eyes. There are so many people here, anyway, ugly ones are not good things, especially this lump of purple sweet potato essence. But I don't think you will kill him. This guy likes to send his subordinates to fight with each other. You can't kill him because you don't have me, Carol said confidently. Thanos was speechless. This fierce woman is actually more narcissistic than Thor? Carol, who boasted about the sea, took the lead in attacking. An energy cannon hit his face, rushed up and then kicked Thanos' knee to force him to kneel, and then punched his head like a storm, and then there was no more. Thanos fought hard to resist a blow, grabbed Carol's wrist, turned around with a 720-degree windmill, and threw Carol flying tens of meters away with a fierce swing. Thor covered his face. Carol's gorgeous combo just now almost made him so handsome. The result is handsome but 3 seconds. Carol can fly, but Thanos can't fly, and in the end he has the air supremacy and fights like this. Sister surprise. I reminded you more than 10 years ago to pay attention to physical training, but did you really ignore it? Just as Thor was complaining, his eyes suddenly focused, and he discovered a very serious situation. Carol, who was thrown away, the energy radiance from his body disappeared. In fact, he saw the same scene in the movie, and thought it was a small bug during filming. Now it seems that it is not that simple. Reminiscent of Captain Marvel's super ability form, it is likely that this means that Carol's super ability has temporarily failed at this moment. Suddenly remembered that when he was fighting against Yang Luoj, Carol also had a period of super ability time limit, and that was when he fell from a high altitude. The common point is that the body has lost its balance, and even the super ability can't be controlled. What's more serious is that Thanos, who has rich combat experience, discovered this flaw at the first time, even before Thor, raised the Overlord Skyblade and threw it, and flew towards Carlo, who was flying backwards with overwhelming force. The speed is so fast that the surrounding air is burning. Under normal circumstances, Carol can completely resist this blow, and she won't even dodge it with a strong head. But this will temporarily empty the egg. If Captain Marvel is hit, he will be seriously injured even if he is not dead. The speed and distance Thor has no time to stop, he shouted, Wanda. Wanda instantly understood what he meant, quickly let go of the suppression on Ebony Maw, and stretched out her hand towards Tyrant Tianran. The red energy wrapped the Tyrant Skyblade and stopped in the air. Wanda raised his hands vigorously, and the Tyrant Skyblade flew out and fell aside. Everything in his sight was shrouded in dark red smoke, and Thanos looked solemnly at the woman in red standing in front of him. Butcher. Repent for the blood donation on your hands, in hell, remember my name. Wanda's voice was low. Such a compelling opening remark, definitely was taught by Thor, and she can use what she has learned. Thanos looked confused. I don't know you at all. Whose baby is this? Is it sick? You will know. Wanda finished speaking, and launched the first attack, clapping her hands to the ground, and the overwhelming red energy went straight to Thanos, making him stagger. Red energy balls kept hitting his head. If it is Captain Marvel's energy cannon, it doesn't matter if Thanos' physique is directly in the face, but facing Wanda's energy ball will not work. Dark red energy covered Thanos' body, slowly eroding his strength. Ebony Maw reacted on the spot. He controlled the chain axe that Black Dwarf had left on the side, and rushed towards Wanda like a long snake. Magicians are often very fragile, especially when they are casting spells. Wanda can't even protect her shield in time. The axe blade stopped in the air, and Carol, who had re-exploded energy, immediately grabbed the other end of the chain axe, turned twice as a meteor hammer, and smashed heavily at Black Order. I just got slapped by Thanos and almost suffered a big loss. This is something I have never experienced in so many years, and now I am very angry. Ebony Maw and Corvus Glaive dodged quickly, and huge amounts of axes fell towards the largest Black Dwarf. As the #1 tank under Thanos, although Black Dwarf has rough skin and thick flesh, and his defense is second only to Thanos, he dare not fight hard. He knew the strength of his weapon, let alone saw Carol's strength, so he was about to dodge immediately. A golden halo suddenly appeared in front of it, and a palm stretched out from it, patting gently on his chest. Punching your chest with a small fist? Black Dwarf is at a loss. Do you want to hurt yourself with this palm that you don't even feel? The chain blade axe that Carol was smashing on top of his head brought the whistling sound, and he quickly rolled away, feeling that his body was much lighter, when he heard the sound of a sharp weapon entering his body in confusion. Black Dwarf looked at his translucent body in disbelief, facing another self who was pierced by the chain blade in front of him. Soul magic. Kamar Taj's black magic. Ebony Maw reminds loudly, though never anything soft. Black Dwarf's soul rushed to his body, but passed through directly. Thor, the instigator, sneered, how could the black magic of the soul be deciphered so easily? This guy has very strong vitality, and he can't be killed with one hit. Thor yelled, and Carol, who reacted, swung the chain blade with Black Dwarf's body on it, and smashed it at the remaining 3 generals of Black Dwarf. Ebony Maw immediately controlled the platform under his feet to fly him away. Telekinesis controlled the metal spear to stab him, but his attack couldn't even break the defense, at most it caused some disturbance. As soon as he was ruthless, several huge iron pillars several meters thick smashed up like Mount Tai. Boom. The iron pillar hit Carol and instantly shattered, covering her. Black Dwarf's broken body fell down, no longer human. This thing is not in human form, so it shouldn't be called a beast. Corvus Glaive raised his double-edged spear and stabbed at the ruins on the ground. His weapons are specially made, with strong penetrating ability, like vibranium, the most powerful metal on Earth, which can penetrate in one go. The gunhead was grabbed by Carol in the ruins, and he tried his best to pull it back, but it didn't move at all. Unlike Black Dwarf, who is used to abandoning weapons at any time, Corvus Glaive has most of his strength in weapons and rarely gives up weapons easily. Facing Carol's fist, he also punched back, and the fists of the two collided without fancy. Boom. There was a loud noise, and Corvus Glaive flew backwards like a cannonball. The right arm that had just touched it was pulled down, and there were several fractures at least. Not good. Ebony Maw and Proxima Midnight are about to come to the rescue, but Thor, holding Gungnir, stands in front of them and drives them back with a sweeping shot. Holding the gun of eternity, he used it as a stick and threw it on the head of Proxima Midnight by. Thor, who was empty-handed back then, was able to defeat the 4 generals of He Yao. Even if they underestimated the enemy, it also proved the crushing in strength. But now, Proxima Midnight and Ebony Maw didn't dare to fight head-on, and hurriedly avoided the neighbors. Corvus Glaive, who was flying upside down in midair, saw a fist zooming in at high speed before it landed. Bang. The fist reached his cheek first, and then there was severe pain. Moreover, Carol's blow was directed from top to bottom, directly sticking to Corvus Glaive's head and hitting the superalloy floor that can't be crushed by a tank. Boom. A simple violent blow is actually not terrible. These days, it is not a big deal to be sent flying hundreds of meters and collapsing a few buildings. Problem: Corvus Glaive's back was pressed against the floor, and he was like a fish on a chopping board who couldn't undo the force. This punch that was enough to destroy the battleship was taken by his head. The floor couldn't bear the huge force, and was punched out of the hull by the back of the head. Corvus Glaive's mind was spinning, and he passed away almost dizzy. No. Seeing that the energy in Carol's hand was concentrated and he was about to punch harder, Proxima Midnight yelled and threw the sharp gun in his hand regardless of safety. The sharp gun split into 3 black rays and shot towards Carol. Legend has it that this shot killed most creatures instantly. But Captain Marvel obviously didn't belong to this majority. The rays bombarded her, but didn't break through her defense, just blasted her out. Corvus Glaive staggered to his feet, seeing a scene that made him tear up. 10 seconds ago. Compared to your old lover, you should care about yourself first. Thor sneered, and the holy Spearginger pierced the large alloy dragged by Ebony Maw psychokinesis. Stab at Proxima Midnight without weapons. Proxima Midnight only had time to stagger the vital point slightly, and the Spear of Eternity pierced into the body, penetrating the luteal bone. The screams came, and Ebony Maw quickly controlled the alloy block to retract, and hit Proxima Midnight's chest heavily, pushing her back. The luteus was pierced. Coupled with a heavy blow to the chest, Proxima Midnight fell to the ground and couldn't get up for a while. It wasn't that Ebony Maw cheated on her, and he knew that if he had been half a second late, Thor would have provoked her, and it would be bad luck. In just a few rounds, the 4 generals of He Yao, who were majestic just now, were killed and the others seriously injured. Black Dwarf's body was still hanging on his chain blade. When his body died, his soul also disappeared. It is not a magician with strong mental power to a certain extent, and the soul cannot survive alone without the body. Proxima Midnight is out of action. Corvus Glaive's face was deformed by the beating, and it has not yet returned to its original shape. Only one remote magician, Ebony Maw, is left intact. On the other side, Thor and Carol are unscathed and look like they can fight all day. 4-on-2 turned 2-on-2, with Ebony Maw and Corvus Glaive showing panic. Long time no see. If I remember correctly, we haven't seen each other for 20 years, right? Carol landed beside Thor and said hello. No. Thor's face darkened when he mentioned this. We met 15 years ago, and you punched me from New Mexico to Norway and almost killed me. At that time, he was dispatched to the earth. If it wasn't for Carol's fist, he would not have fallen into Hela's seal. If it hadn't fallen into the seal, it wouldn't have been sent to the second floor of the holy place by random teleportation. Back then, I had just left Novice Village, and immediately entered the boss lair. No. It's not me. Don't talk nonsense, denied 3 times. You two don't talk about the old days, I can't do it. Wanda's exclamation came. Wanda is restraining Thanos with red energy, lifts him into the air to try to suppress Thanos, but obviously cannot count. Theoretically, the rage state plus the red-eyed Wanda who died of her boyfriend, can be called the strongest Avenger in history, tearing Thanos with her hands, much better than Thor. But now, no one is hanging around, and Wanda, who is not rage, has no red eyes and is not fierce at all. It is already extraordinary to be able to suppress Thanos for so long. The red energy suddenly disappeared, Wanda lost consciousness and passed out. Thor hugged her and put her aside. Wanda struggled to open her eyes and smiled wryly. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Thor shook his head. No, you've done a good job, leave it to me. Carol pouted. Have you always coaxed girls like this? Thanos fell heavily to the ground, took a breath, and said, your magic is indeed terrible, but I won in the end. Thor squinted at him. Yes, you won. You managed to get your dog to take the lead in implementing your half-kill policy, and the whole universe will be moved by you. Carol reminded. No, it's not halfway there yet, that woman is only half dead. No, General He Yao IV originally had 5, and I killed the other 70 years ago when he came to the Earth to cause trouble. Of the 5, 2 companions died. Wow. That's amazing, so we're even on a one-on-one match? No, I have one more assist. If it were a guy with insufficient self-cultivation, facing the fancy ridicule of the two, he would probably be irritated on the spot. Thanos is expressionless. Sacrificing for the future of the universe, I have been prepared since I embarked on this path. Whether they or I are the same, this is fate, and it is also glory. F***KU, ruthless. Thor can feel it. Thanos' words are not simply pouring chicken soup on his subordinates, but from the heart. Violence, killing, in fact, everything he did was not for himself, but for the sake of the environment of the entire universe. Killing people for the balance of cosmic resources is a revolutionary setting. At this moment, all the villains are not as lofty as Thanos. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is an idealist who dares to put it into practice. In fact, he just stood at a higher height and looked down on the creatures in the universe. In fact, humans have done the same to many animals in the name of conservation. Theoretically should. The idea is not much of a problem. But half of this guy's extermination includes himself, so that's a big problem. He can't control outside the 9 realms, and the 9 realms is Asgard's territory. If there are too many people and few people, what's the matter with your purple potato essence? When Thanos snapped his fingers, it was a matter of the whole universe, and no one should want to stay out of it. The contradiction between the two is irreconcilable. Thanos is obviously not in the mood to argue with him. This guy can attack personally while talking, and can only communicate with his fists. Ebony Maw made a move, he pointed, and a hard metal plate was torn apart by invisible psychokinesis, wrapping around Carol like a spirit snake. Carol's strength exploded and instantly twisted the metal, but more metal plates rushed up. Corvus Glaive didn't rush forward. He knew that the woman's strength was not even weaker than Thanos. He raised his weapon and guarded Ebony Maw cautiously, preventing Carol's energy cannon from hitting Ebony Maw. With many years of cooperation experience, the tactics have been clarified without even communicating. Their task is to hold Carol at all costs, and Thanos can clean up Thor. The Overlord Heavenly Blade slashed down fiercely. Thor raised Gungnir to block the blow, and raised the big knife again to slash down. Using strength and size advantages to perform New Year's greeting knife technique as Thanos' tactic. Although Thor's strength is not much different from his, the accumulated advantages of multiple attacks are enough to lock the winning zone. Thor resisted 3 times, his arm was already numb. He took advantage of Thanos' fourth raising of the knife, and quickly erected Gungnir, and the Tyrant Skyblade slashed on the fork of the spear tip. Following this force, he leaned to the side, pressed the knife to the ground, and while Thanos drew the knife, he slapped Thanos in the chest. Soul Astral activated. A translucent soul was shot out of the body in Thor's expectation, but returned to the body in less than a second. There is a saying that the most difficult decision requires the greatest will to execute. Thanos, who is trying to slaughter the world, has a strong willpower, surpassing everyone Thor has ever seen, even Doctor Strange, who negotiates conditions. Thanos' soul had just returned. A golden halo quickly fell from his head, and then quickly weakened. Thor turns the sling ring to close the portal. The voice sounded, and the light circle was tightly wrapped around Thanos' head, but he couldn't continue to be weak. Thor kept gesticulating, increasing his mental power to cast spells. Thanos let out a painful muffled sound, and he grabbed the halo above his head with both hands and pulled it out desperately. This picture looks like Tang Monk is reciting the magic spell to Monkey King. The stalemate didn't last long, and a few seconds later, with a snap, the indestructible portal was torn open by Thanos. Thor received a backlash and stared closely at Thanos, who was panting heavily. He finally understood why Doctor Strange didn't use these 2 moves against Thanos. Thanos' body was too strong to cut through the portal, and his powerful mental power was almost immune to soul magic. Your tricks are pretty good, with a lot of flamboyance. Thanos finished speaking coldly, took off his helmet and fell heavily on the ground, kicking the Overlord Skyblade. Ebony Maw's ability is the most mysterious and difficult to deal with in the Black Order. If you can't move objects with his mind, even if you are stronger than him, it will be difficult to deal with it. Just like Doctor Strange can fight back and forth with the 4-gem Thanos, and when he meets Ebony Maw, he is killed within a few rounds. In fact, if Thor didn't have the power of Awakening Thunder to meet the Black Order, an Ebony Maw would be enough to hang him. This is one of the reasons why Thor didn't bring Jane Foster. Carol is also in a similar situation. Although neither Ebony Maw nor Corvus Glaive can hurt her, the weird ability makes her extremely uncomfortable. The opponent didn't intend to fight her head-on at all, and was only responsible for holding her back. Just as she was about to fly, a metal hand would appear on the ground grabbing her foot, kicking it into pieces, and another piece of the floor fell on her head. If it were any other 2, or even 3, in the Black Order, Carol would be able to slap them casually. This is the restraint of attributes. For her, Ebony Maw is even more difficult than Thanos. In fact, the most suitable for dealing with Ebony Maw is Thor, who can instantly send lightning without moving his body. No matter how tricky your mind is, if you understand the lightning that is a few meters thick from the sky, 1 shot will break the defense, and 2 shots will seriously injure you. 3 shots to kill. On the other hand, the ruthless sword fighter is many times more fierce than the kind-hearted boxer fighter. The violent sword light raged, and Thor didn't even think about it. The thunder light exploded, and Gungnir was covered with shocking light in an instant. The sound of metal clashing kept ringing, shaking everyone's ears. What's even more frightening is the energy wave that swayed thereafter. Whether it's the corpse of Black Dwarf on the ground, the toolbox used by the blacksmith, or the console, they all flew under the strong shockwave and exploded. If facing Hulk, this kind of lightning-enchanted attack would probably be able to defeat him in 1 move, but against Thanos, he was still at a disadvantage and was suppressed in all directions. The Heavenly Blade of the Overlord, also known as the Tyrant's Blade, was also said to have come from the hands of Dwarf, but it fell into the hands of Thanos after several twists and turns, and he has been with him for countless years. And although Gungnir is a magic weapon no less than the Overlord Heavenly Blade, or even better, it is completely suitable for. In addition, the original hard power is inferior to Thanos. If Thanos was not afraid that he might be tricked by Thor with other black magic, he would be more cautious in fighting, and I am afraid he would have lost. Unbeknownst to Thanos, Thor knows both. Thanos found an opportunity, and the Overlord Skyblade stabbed at Thor's leg and slashed fiercely. In his imagination, this blow would at least make Thor lose most of his mobility, and the next step was simple. Boom. The expected scene of the sharp blade piercing the body did not appear, but the sound of metal collision came instead. Man of Steel. A skill that Thor himself almost forgot, because few people can hit him directly. The Overlord Skyblade, which is powerful enough to tear vibranium apart, was scratched on his body, except for a white scratch, the skin was not broken. According to Thor's inference, with the strength of the Overlord blade, it would be difficult to injure himself unless he hit him with all his strength. Thanos was obviously taken aback for a moment. As far as he knew, the Asgardians didn't seem to have such physical strength. No one in the entire universe has a physical body of this strength, except. Like Odin or the woman just now, they also rely on the protection of energy, while Thor is indeed pure physical hardness. Chance. While Thanos was in a daze, Thor quickly grabbed Gungnir and swiped it towards Thanos' neck. Thanos instantly retreated to avoid the point of the gun. Thor pushed forward suddenly, and Gungnir immediately pierced Thanos' chest. Gungnir didn't move when he penetrated 3 inches, which couldn't reach the heart for Thanos' size. Thanos let out a roar, and the Overlord Heavenly Knife slammed towards Thor. Thor was startled, and was about to draw out the spear immediately, but found that he couldn't draw it out. The giant knife rushed towards his face, and Thor only had time to raise his fists to block the violent blow. Boom, a huge explosion sounded. Gungnir finally pulled out, but flew far away in the explosion. Thor flew upside down tens of meters, and there was severe pain in his arm. He didn't have time to check the injury, and a thick lightning struck the tyrant's saber, which was spinning back, and sent him flying. Just now, my weapon has been dropped, and then I let the big knife return to Thanos and hit it with a hammer. He looked at his arm, and there were 2 bloodstains on it. He looked up at Thanos, whose chest was bloody. He is a ruthless person. He is ruthless to others and even more ruthless to himself. I couldn't draw my weapon at the critical moment just now, so I didn't have time to think about it for a while. Now that he saw the wound on Thanos' chest, he understood that Thanos had just stuck Gungnir with his ribs, and then launched a thunderous blow. My arm is only a flesh injury, which is much better than Thanos, but just now Thanos abruptly pulled back 3 points when the situation was completely one-sided. Mistake. Thor sighed. Thanos' attack had another purpose besides changing the wound, which was to disarm. Under his own control, the Eternal Gun could not pierce Thanos, but it was enough to do damage to him. The shock of the Dwarf King Ikki behind can no longer be described in words. When he first saw that Asgard was only supported by Thor and Wanda, he was already desperate. In his opinion, these 2 people underestimated the enemy and came to deliver food. Unexpectedly, whether it was Thor or Wanda, or the glowing woman who appeared later, they all showed extraordinary strength. When Thanos was stabbed by the spear just now, for a moment he almost thought the battle was over, but he didn't expect that Thanos was stronger than he imagined. No wonder Odin chose you to be the king. If you let you grow up, I'm afraid I will not be your opponent, and you will become the biggest obstacle to the balance of the universe. The Overlord Skyblade twirled and flew back into his hand. Thanos' voice sounded expressionless, as if the bloody wound on his chest didn't exist. Thanos is still very confident. Although Thor's defense surprised him a bit, it didn't seem impossible to him. Seeing that the injury on Thor's hand was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye, Thanos' pupils shrank. This kind of ability, combined with the extraordinary defense before, is no stranger to him. It seems to be called super endurance? Super recovery? This ability is very similar to a former strongman of the Eternal Protoss where he belongs. The body does not need to sleep or eat, and has almost unlimited endurance. Almost all physical attacks cannot damage it, and it can resist magic attacks. He can also withstand direct hits from high-caliber guns, naval guns, extreme pressure and extreme temperatures, and he may not even need to breathe to survive. A powerful regenerative repair factor, muscle tissue, organs, bones, etc. can be quickly restored after injury, and he can also use cosmic energy to speed up the repair of damaged cells. The regenerative factor possessed by Hyperion also makes him immune to all diseases, poisons, pollution and radiation. But these are not important anymore, because that person also can't understand his own ideas, and has been destroyed with everyone on Titan Star, which has become the first step to realize his ideals. But all of this will not happen, because you won't live until then. Thor sneered. You can't beat me now, give it a try if you don't believe me. The thunder in his eyes flickered, and he summoned a huge amount of lightning that struck Thanos, pushing him tens of meters away. Majestic lightning burst out covering the body, spinning towards Thanos. Iqui, a dwarf tribe on the side, suddenly panicked. You don't have any weapons in your hands, are you still so brave? Didn't you see that he was holding a knife in his hand? Then the next instant, his eyes widened, Thor turned a corner in the air and turned in the direction of Ebony Maw. If Gingnura is not in your hands, you will definitely not be able to break through your defense. Only fools will fight with you. Get rid of Ebony Maw first, and let the powerful Captain Marvel accompany you just now. He also has a certain understanding of the Man of Steel in the fight just now. Although it is indeed very powerful, it is not yet invincible. At least it cannot be used as a weapon to head on with the Overlord blade. Corvus Glaive raised his double-bladed spear and stabbed. Lie down with your wife. Thor slapped his double-edged gun away, grabbed his hair and threw him hard at Thanos behind. Ebony Maw, who was casting spells at high speed, was caught off guard, and was punched by Thor, who rushed up and flew out. Thanos, who found out that he had been tricked, quickly chased after him. Hey, let me try to charge you. Thor had a flash of inspiration, and pressed his hand on Carol's shoulder, continuously injecting the electric current continuously. Carol almost twitched, the light all over his body became brighter, his hands lit up a continuous wave of light that was stronger than ever before, and blasted towards Thanos. Hoo. Thanos raised the Overlord Skyblade, spun at a high speed, blocked the light waves, and moved forward with difficulty. One more shot. Carol yelled, and Thor understood. Another hand was on her shoulder. Now, the golden light in Carol's eyes has taken on a touch of blue. Drink. Boom. With a loud noise, Nidoi's dwarfs seemed to have seen the birth of a second sun. The dazzling light made the entire battlefield dark, as if the place changed from day to night in an instant, and those bright lights were the real sun. Where the energies collide, violent explosions trigger powerful shockwaves. Whether it's Thanos or Thor and Carol, they all flew out backwards. The explosion shockwave pushed away the smoke and dust, and Thor quickly rushed to Wanda, hugged her, and turned his back to the incoming shockwave. Wanda's physical fitness is not as good as ordinary dwarf. Such a shockwave is hard to resist. As for Corvus Glaive, he rolled and flew out on the spot. Ebony Maw is better, controlling Black Dwarf's huge corpse in front of him, blocking most of the shockwave for him. Wanda slowly opened her eyes, feeling Thor's posture, she blushed and pushed. You're awake. Yeah. Wanda nodded, but I'm still a little dizzy, I'm afraid I can't help much, at least that purple potato guy can't control it. It's okay, it's enough that you can stand up, just control your emotions. Even an incomplete Wanda is a deterrent, at the very least a great distraction to Ebony Maw. Asgard, after Thor left, Heimdall has been closely monitoring Nidoi's situation. Sif asked Heimdall eagerly, "How's your highness doing?" Thor said though, let her not worry. But the solemnity in his eyes when he left couldn't hide it from her, and since he had been away for more than a day now, she couldn't help but not worry. Your highness is fine now, just suffered some minor injuries. The opponents are not many and have no army, but one of them is very strong. He should be the mastermind behind the invasion of Midgard. Perhaps only His Majesty can defeat him in Asgard. Your highness and the magician are not weak, and there is another strong super ability to help. Sif only noticed Heimdall's description of the opponent's strength, only inferior to Odin. Odin is a super boss who exploded with one shot. The more she thought about it, the more worried she became. She couldn't help but said, no, His Highness cannot face such a powerful enemy alone. We must support him. Fandral immediately echoed. That's right, no matter how strong the enemy is, we have faced it together, what are we afraid of? Let us help, at least part of the pressure can be shared for His Highness. Heimdall hesitated for a while. Although he still felt that he should follow Thor's arrangement intellectually, the words of Sif and Fandral were not unreasonable. Wait. It was Loki who stopped him, and he asked Heimdall in a deep voice. If my brother sends a message, how long will it take for Nadawi to Asgard to receive back? Quote? Basically no delay. Heimdall shot him a look. Well, we should follow his arrangement. No, Sif immediately retorted. If it is an ordinary enemy, it is indeed no problem to do so, but this time the situation is different, we cannot put His Highness in danger. Fandral's words were sharper. Loki, I know you disobey your brother, but that's not the reason why you want to kill him. Loki has too many criminal records, and the three warriors of Asgard don't trust him. You know AP. Loki raised his voice rarely, you will only make him more dangerous if you go. That fellow Thor is capable of hitting you at least 100 times. What can you do to help? Apart from dragging him down, or being held hostage, it won't do anything. The other party didn't bring an army, so there's no need for our army to be sent to die. If he needed support, he would have notified us long ago. If he didn't notify, he didn't want you to make trouble. The three warriors of Asgard were speechless. Heimdall nodded. Loki finally did something human. Nadawi, the situation has reached a stalemate. Thor is in the middle, Carol is on the left, and Wanda is on the right. Hugging left and right. Ah, that's not right. The Zuo Jing team is also a witch. This is probably the strongest big three in history. Opposite, Mie Laojiao is in the front, Ebony Maw and Corvus Glaive are behind, left and right, and Proxima Midnight is supporting. Thanos' face is a little dark, it looks like 4 against 3, but the 3 people on the opposite side are super hard to crack, and his side has 3 pits with 1 mind. Wouldn't it be a big loss to kill a few people? The corner of Thanos' mouth twitched. If he had known it earlier, he would have ignored it, and directly opened Holy Place number 2. The design template of the key glove was destroyed in the aftermath of the fight, and even if it won for a while, it would not be possible to make it. Even Thanos had to admit that today's operation failed. In fact, he already has the intention to quit. The problem is that the younger brother Ebony Maw just died, and he learned that the supergiant who disappeared decades ago also died in the hands of Thor. If this is the case, it doesn't matter if I have a thick skin, and there will be no problem if Black Order is all stupid fans. The key is that other subordinates will have ideas, such as Chi Ruida people, vanguards and other subordinates. There is no guarantee that they will not have other ideas. These days, people's hearts are scattered, and the team is not easy to lead. Our whole family will serve you as thugs and cannon fodder. It depends on your strength and follows you to have meat to eat. But your King little brother was killed by a second-generation god and a few natives of remote planets, so he didn't dare to say a word. Such a cowardly master. Follow you to eat. The atmosphere on Thor's side is also very dignified. Black Order is a chicken and a dog, and there is no threat. The point is that Thanos is too damn resistant to beatings. He and Carol have tried many methods, but none of them have obvious effects. The indestructible portal can be torn by him, and Gungnir, the eternal gun, can only break the skin and cut the flesh. It looks scary, but Thor knows that old Thanos is a ninja king who can snap half of his body with an axe. For Thanos, who has fought in the universe for countless years, this injury is just a drizzle, except that the fight is a little more fierce and ruthless, and the madness has no effect. The atmosphere slowly became solemn, and the two sides stared at each other, ready to strike at any time. Thanos knew that today's plan had failed, but he was obviously not willing to leave just like that. At least, it must cause enough losses to the other party. He's eyeing Wanda. This woman's ability is too terrifying, and there is no defense at all. Once she grows up, the threat she brings to herself is even far greater than Thor or Captain Marvel. Moreover, it was this magician who held him back at first, causing Black Dwarf to die and Proxima Midnight to be seriously injured. Thor subconsciously stood in front of Wanda. Once fighting again, Thanos will definitely attack Wanda, who is the most threatening to him and the best to kill in an instant. and Carol lack the means to kill Thanos. The only thing that can threaten Thanos here is Wanda, provided that her mental power is restored, and she must be protected before that. Wanda doesn't know. Wow, seeing Thor protect her behind such a strong enemy, she was so moved that she almost burst into tears. Thanos shot suddenly, and the tyrant Skyblade flew out in a spin, heading towards Wanda. Get out of the way. Thor pushed Wanda away, dodging the glaive. Carol blasted an energy cannon towards Thanos. Thanos blocked the energy beam with one hand, and caught the flying blade with the other hand. He avoided the attack with one side of his body, quickly jumped into the air, and slashed at Carol. Ebony Maw stretched out his fingers, countless boulders turned into spikes and shot at Wanda. Wanda ability is activated. Red energy permeates in front of the body, and the spikes turn into powder and fall down. Corvus Glaive stabbed from behind. Thor grabbed his double-edged gun, kicked him hard, and was about to make up the knife, when Thanos in the rear got rid of Captain Marvel's entanglement, slashed at Wanda, and had to turn back to block Thanos. Thor couldn't help being a little annoyed. Thanos can have no scruples about the life and death of his subordinates, but he can't control Wanda. Magician, who has a high offense and a low defense, his shortcomings are completely exposed at this moment. Obviously, the other party saw this, and most of the attacks were aimed at Wanda. Wanda, who had not fully recovered, was deliberately targeted, and there was a sudden danger. Boom. There was a loud bang in the sky, and the brilliance of Bifrost shone in the middle of both sides. Gungnir, who fell to the side, instantly flew up and rushed into the light. An old voice rang out, "Thanos, you are in a hurry." Thanos, who was about to make a shot, changed his face drastically, and stopped his action on the spot. The Overlord Skyblade blocked back, blocking Ebony Maw and Corvus Glaive, who were about to make a shot behind him. Carol was also taken aback. The energy cannon was about to be fired on the spot, but Thor stopped her. "Don't fire, my own. I guess we won't be able to fight today." The light faded, and Odin held Gungnir in his hand, exuding divine power all over his body, and stared at Thanos with wise eyes. "Thousands of years ago, you lost to me in Asgard. Now, before I die, you are trying to invade the 9 realms. I thought that the elimination of the Dark Elves would wake up the lifeless forces. Now it seems, some people are born to need to suffer more." Thanos sneered and said, "Do you think you still have the ability to defeat me? Your lifespan is about to run out, and destroying Vathheim is the last remaining force. Even if you still have some cards, you are already at your peak. Bar? That's it. Then you can try it." The light of the destroyer armor lit up, covering his whole body. "But you have to consider the consequences. This time, you probably won't have a chance to escape." Thanos quickly turned his brain to think. Odin must not be at his peak, and his lifespan is not long, but he must still have some powerful strength. If there is a fight, it is very likely that you will fight to the death with yourself, and you will gain if you lose both. Odin doesn't matter anyway, he is dying anyway, but Thanos can't. After all, there is more than one Odin on the opposite side, and Thor and Captain Marvel are there. If I fight Odin, no matter who wins or loses, it won't be over soon, and Ebony Maw and Corvus Glaive against Thor and Carol, it won't last 10 seconds. Once under siege, with Odin around, it is very likely that I will be left behind." After weighing it, Thanos made up his mind, turned his head and whispered, "Since the mold of the Infinity Gauntlet has been destroyed, there is no point in us staying here, let's retreat." Ebony Maw understood, waved his hand, and a small spaceship came to them in the distance. Thanos gave Odin a cold look. "I have lost this game. But, you can't last long, and I really want to see what will happen to Asgard after you die." He turned to jump over the spaceship and gave an order. "Go." The spaceship roared into the air, entered the wormhole and disappeared.